Hi, my name's Darren Mostyn. I'm a professional broadcast colorist. I've been using DaVinci Resolve for well over 13 years now. And I did an episode last week where I introduced DaVinci Resolve to complete newbies. So you've literally never opened DaVinci Resolve in your life. You haven't got a clue what it even is. And I just did a good overview episode. And in the comments, I got a lot of very positive feedback about that, saying they wish they'd had this video earlier. So what I've done is I'm going to do the same, but specifically for the color page. So this is really for people who've, you've maybe been in the edit page, you've done a bit of editing, you've gone into the color page to start a grade, and you're literally looking at this going, what on earth is going on here? I'm going to demystify it for you I'm hoping to do this in about 10-15 minutes. We're not going into color management, anything deep. This is just an absolute beginner's guide to what is going on in the color page. So let's go and take a look. So we're in the color page. This is the timeline that I used in that previous episode. If you are brand new to DaVinci Resolve, go and watch that episode first. I'll put a link to it up in the top, and I'll put a link in the description, and I'll put a link in that episode linking you back to this one so you can concentrate on the color page. But basically, yeah, this is just an overview of the color page, and you just need to know that these pages all talk to each other. So the edit that's sitting here, if I make an edit adjustment to it, let's just trim it down a little bit, that has updated automatically for me in the color page. So you need to get that concept good. If your color page doesn't look exactly like this, it does change slightly depending on the resolution of your display that you're working on. So I've got a large resolution display here, but if you go up to workspace at the top and press here, reset UI layout, okay, that will put your user interface back to default, and it might look something a little bit more like this. But each of these windows can be adjusted quite easily. So we can take off the gallery, for example. We can have a look at our media pool. So the media pool is exactly the same as the media pool that's in the edit page, and indeed the media page here. All right, so we can still see our clips here. And let's switch that one off and put our gallery back on so it's back to default. And you can see here that we've only got 2 clips. These are the 2 clips that we used in the previous episode. I want to have a look at a different edit. So we can either go to the edit page, and I can go to my sequences tab that I've got here, and I got another one here. So if I double click this sequence, you see that we've actually got 11 shots in here now. So if I go back to the color page, that is the sequence that I'm going to be affecting. You can also access those from up here. Okay, so I've got timeline 1. And I've got the finished edit. And all I've got to do is literally start grading. So what is going on here? This area here, let's start in the top left corner. It says no stills created, and that is our gallery. So I'm going to come to what that is in a moment. We need to do a little bit of grading first to explain what that actually is. You might see it like this. You might have these little folders here, but essentially we haven't created any stills yet. Okay, and a still is basically going to contain our grade. This is our main viewer. So if I press play, I can use my spacebar. I can use the play button here. This has got me into loop mode, so I just literally stay on that clip. And I'm just going to mute the audio because we're just focusing on color here. All right, so this is our main viewer. So this is exact mirror of what I've got going on my output monitor. This area here is our node area. Okay, this is where people start to get confused. I'm not going to go into nodes in depth, but I am going to explain to you what a node is. So down here, this is obviously each of my shots. So I can go through my edit like this. Okay, this could be a 1-minute shot. It could be a 10-second shot. It doesn't really matter to me. It's a shot that needs grading. This section here is our primary controls. Primary control means it affects the whole image. So if I go onto the first shot here, and let's just have a quick look at what these actual wheels are doing. So these are your main tools for doing your main color grading. So the small area in the middle adjusts the color. So if I just push this towards red, you can see the image gets warmer and cooler like that. And this slider down here adjusts the actual overall brightness. So with offset, we're adjusting the whole image. Okay, now I can measure that easier using what's called the scopes. So if I click over here, I've got this tool here, which is scope. This is measuring the brightness and the color information that's in the image. So watch what happens when I move this up and down. The whole graph moves up and down. All right, so the offset is affecting the whole image. If I just reset that, what I'm going to do now is adjust gain, and you'll see that what happens now is it affects the highlights more than it does the shadows. So the shadows are down here, the highlights are up here, and obviously this area here is your midtones. All right. So if I use lift, that would affect the more darker areas, the shadow areas. So if I pull that down, you can see there that the black level, so 0 is black, 1023 is white, is pushing down. All right, so that's the basis of the grade. Now, while we've been pressing these buttons, what's been happening is our node here has been recording that information. There's a little symbol here, and we've now got a little colored icon around the first edit number indicating that we have done a grade. Now, if I click the number here, 01, because that's our first node, that will disable that, and that was the original image, and this is what we just did. So a combination of these tools here has given us this result. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is add another node. So I'm going to right hand click on this node. I'm going to say add node, and all we're going to work in is what's called serials. Okay, so this is a node after a node. And if I now click on this node here, we have got some other tools here. Okay, all these other tools here. So I can go here to saturation, for example. So saturation is going to increase or decrease our color. So I'm going to boost it up a little bit, and you can see it's getting more colorful now. So that information is recorded on node 2. Why did I do it on another node? I didn't have to. I could have done all that just on node 1. So let me show you. I'm going to reset that. I'm going to click on node 1. Sorry, I just right click on this to reset it. Reset node there. Click on node 1, so this node is the active one. I'm going to do that same amount of saturation, and that looks absolutely the same. I've done exactly the same move, but this node now contains offset information, lift information, gain information, and saturation information. So that's a lot of information in just one node. So for me, I like to separate it out into separate things. If I wanted to see what that looked like with no saturation changes, it's hard for me to do. I have to literally reset that saturation. Okay, but if I did saturation on a separate node, watch now, I can highlight number 2 or just press on the number 2, and I'm taking off the saturation, but I'm keeping this node's values. So we're keeping the level adjustment that we made. So that's really one of the main reasons I use nodes. Okay, it just allows me to build up the look in layers, which you can then switch on and off, and it just keeps it very managed. And then once I'm happy with what I've done, I just literally add another node. So let's right hand click and say add node, add serial. You can also use option S to do that. So this node here is now empty. If I switch it on and off, nothing happens. If I switch this one off, the saturation goes down. And if I switch this one off, the saturation will stay, but the level change that we did is disabled. All right, so you can see we're just building up these layers. All right, so let's have a look at what other tools we've got here. These are the primary color wheels. This icon here is exactly the same color wheels, just represented in a different form. Okay, so you might see it looking like this. And again, if I just adjust my offset, it's doing exactly the same thing. These little icons here will reset that. So this one and this one are exactly the same. I'm not going to go through all of these tools because some of these get quite advanced. This is your main area. So in here, you want to play with your lift, gamma, gain. I suggest you work with your offset first. So this shot is looking a little bit warm. So if I use my offset and literally pull that down away from the warm colors and into these cooler colors, you'll see that very quickly we've smartened that image up. And if I just go to my shadows, let's just pull them down a little bit. And there we go, we've got a really nice looking image. If you press Command and D, you can disable that single node as well. If you press Shift and D, you'll disable the whole grade. So that's the shot that we had originally from the edit page. And there it is with our color grade. Now if I go back to the edit page, that shot is still graded. All right, so if I press Command Shift D, there's without the grade, and there's the grade, because it's just talking to that page. All right, let's add another node. I'm going to add another serial. I'm only going to work in serials. You can move these around. You can do whatever you like. If I do that, by the way, it doesn't change the order. Okay, the order is coming from these lines here. So this green dot here represents the original image without a grade. It goes into the first node, and then that grade comes out of here into the second node. These 2 grades come out of here into the third node, and these 3 grades come out of here into the fourth node. And this here is my display. This is my output. It's my final render, if you like. Some other areas that it's worth looking at are at the top here, you've got temperature. So this is, oh, sorry, I didn't want to go onto node 3. I want to be on node 4. So here I can adjust my color temperature. You've got tint, which adjusts the sort of green and magentas. Contrast here. So all these tools are there to play with. I'm not going to go through all these in detail. I really just want to give you an overview so you're not scared of the color page and really get over what nodes are. People get too worried about nodes. So I sometimes add a node if I'm just thinking of an idea and I haven't worked out what I'm going to do yet, add another node. Then what you can do, if you don't like what you just did, so I don't like that color temperature adjustment I just did, right click on the node, just press reset. I'm back to where I was, but with keeping all of the adjustments I've made so far because I'm happy up to here. Another area that people like to work in is what's called the curves. So once we're into these set of parameters, we are going into what's called secondary color grading. Secondary basically means that you can isolate either colors or luminance values, brightness values, and start really focusing the grade into a more specialized area. So for example, we can just start playing with these curves. Okay, and you've got many, many different types of curves. Again, I'm not going to show you these in any great detail at all, in fact, in no detail at all. But for example, we've got here hue versus saturation. If I click on her red headscarf there, I can literally pull down the saturation just in the red. You can see it's also affecting her face and her lips, but you get the general idea. All right, so that's what those curves are for. There's other tools in here as well. Again, I'm not going into detail here, but you've got things like the color warper. I've done a whole episode on how the color warper works. You've got keying tools. In here, you can draw shapes. So what we can do is make a little window. That means everything that I do only affects inside or outside of that window. So that's what they're for. I'm just going to reset that. There's a tracker, there's all sorts of stuff, but these are your secondary tools. You've also got a whole load of effects up here, so these are quite fun to play with when you're first starting. If I want to apply one of these effects, I want to apply it onto node 4, and I can't actually see node 4 at the minute. So what you can do is you can right click in here and say clean up node graph, which will sort it out for you. But when I open up the effects, it still sits on top. So you can middle mouse click and literally move your nodes around so you can see it, okay? Or you can move it first, go to the effects, and now I can just drag and drop on. So if I want to do a blur, I can just drag and drop the blur on, and there you see it's there. All right, I'm going to right click and reset that. What I want to do now is grab the information that I've done so far. So I want to grab this footage. I'm going to right hand click in the middle here. I'm going to say grab still. And this now has populated this gallery that we were looking at when we very first opened the color page. So what is this still? This still contains these 4 nodes. Okay, admittedly node 4 hasn't got anything in it, but it still contains that node. How do I know that? If I right click on this still and say display node graph, it shows me the 4 nodes. So this still here contains all the color grading information from these 4 nodes. So what am I going to do with that? Well, the beauty of this is now I can take this shot, which is exactly the same, and I can drag and drop that on there, and there's the 4 nodes. We've already graded this shot, okay? So I can just do that again. What else I can do is I can click on this shot here because it's the same, and I can just literally middle mouse click that one if I want to. And that now has applied the same 4 nodes. I could do that here as well. I could click on this shot, middle mouse click here, and it's updated. So that's what the stills are for. It's basically a record of the grade. So obviously the color page gets much, much deeper than this, but I think that is enough just to get you going and not to be worried about it. If I go back to the edit page now, you'll see that this shot's been graded and this shot's been graded, and I can press Shift and D and remove it. So that's how you start grading. So if you're new to the color page, I suggest just start in the primary color wheels tab and work with offset. So use this tool here for your brightness. I'd use this tool here for your overall color, and maybe play with a bit of saturation and maybe a bit of contrast if you're feeling like it. Those tools are going to get your image looking a lot better than it is to start with. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next episode.